Welcome back! We've finished Chapter 5, but instead of continuing our save directly, we're going to use a different option, the Branch of Fate. This feature gives you the opportunity to remake your character right before the route split, allowing you to switch to another campaign without having to redo the tutorial chapters. When you open a save file using the Branch of Fate, the game automatically selects the same settings you picked when you started that file from the prologue, same difficulty, gender, face, hair, and so on. If we pick all the same options again, this will be no different from simply continuing our save after Chapter 5. We'll have the same stats, and so will every other unit who has been on our team so far. And in that case, no matter which route we pick, Jakob will rejoin us in Chapter 6 with all of his experience, weapon, and support points intact. The other servant, Felicia, will join us much later as a level 13 maid. However, we are going to change things, and the biggest change is that we're going to switch Corrin's gender from female to male. The immediate impact of this is that the servant who joins us in Chapter 6 will be Felicia, not Jakob. And because Felicia hasn't gained any experience before, she'll show up at level 1. Meanwhile, Jakob's return will be delayed until we beat Chapter 15. But he doesn't lose all the experience he has accumulated. Rather, the 12 auto levels that normally raise the second servant from level 1 to level 13 will just be added on top. Since Jakob has already reached level 3.95, that means he will come back at level 15.95. Jakob is a butler, and butlers learn skills at level 5 and level 15. So when Jakob rejoins us, he will have learned all of the skills from his starting class, and he'll be very close to leveling up again. If we want to, we could immediately give him a heart seal, and then he'd pick up new skills from another class very quickly. That's all well and good, but the main reason we're doing this is not that we want to make our second servant be a little bit stronger when they join us halfway through the game. The point is that we genuinely want Felicia, and not Jakob. Because Jakob and Felicia start in promoted classes, but gain experience like unpromoted units, they can access powerful skills much earlier than everyone else, particularly if they marry the right partner so they can get into better classes. That can help them dominate the first half of the game. It's a perfectly legitimate and effective strategy, but it's not one I prefer. With the right tactics, you can achieve essentially the same results in the early game using other characters who have better base stats, better growths, better classes, and the ability to gain stats from promotion. So I'm not going to invest heavily in our first servant. Instead, I want to use them for their support abilities, their chip damage with daggers, their healing, their personal skills, and their auras. In that capacity, Felicia is just better. Her defensive aura in particular is really nice to have, since the early male characters make better use of that bonus than the early female characters do. And we're even going to make her lower strength work in our favor. It will allow other units to make more attacks and get more experience. The second important change is in our Bane. We're switching from Excitable to Unlucky. If you pick a Strength or Speed boon, both of which are solid choices, I think a Resistance Bane is usually best. But for a Magic boon specifically, the Luck Bane offers excellent personal pair-up stats. It makes Corrin provide an extra point of speed at C support, which is fantastic for hitting early thresholds reliably. Extra defense at B rank is nice, and then at A rank we get speed again. If we can unlock some A supports quickly, and we will, it's hard to beat what is effectively 4 strength, 3 speed, and 3 defense when pairing up, not to mention the extra 2 magic, 1 skill, 2 luck, 2 resistance, and 10 more hit on top. The Luck Bane does have a cost in that it reduces our crit resistance and our accuracy a bit, and it also drops our strength growth by 5%. But we get slightly better speed growth and better resistance in exchange, and it'll be fairly easy for us to patch up our luck when we need to. The final change is our talent. There are several great options here. Cavalier has 2 very strong skills that Corrin can unlock quickly without having to give up his ability to wield Iato. With Swordfare from Swordmaster and Life and Death from Master of Arms, the Samurai class tree makes the endgame more or less free. Wyvern Rider offers powerful skills both early and late, and it also provides 2 fantastic finishing classes. Ninja, with its access to daggers and shurikens, is the best option for physical combat. And Dark Mage is like Cavalier in that it provides 2 great skills immediately, but it also has innate access to weapons with 1-2 range like Ninja does, and its promotions have better late-game prospects than the Cavalier promotions do. When we're deciding what talent to pick, we have to consider the fact that Corrin's single most powerful weapon is the Dragonstone, which has 14 might. Since we're keeping our magic boon, the Dragonstone will be strong enough to one-shot certain enemies in the early game if we want to. More importantly, it will provide massive dual strikes, which can help our other characters secure kills for themselves. But Corrin can only use the Dragonstone in his base class, Nohr Prince. If we change Corrin into his talent class by spending a heart seal on him, we'll lose that. Eventually, the trade-off will be worth it, but it's not always the right move early on. Moreover, male Corrin will be able to acquire 4 of the 5 classes I recommended by friendship. The only exception is Samurai, and of the 4 he can get, the only one that's even slightly inconvenient is Wyvern Rider. So we don't have to make this selection for Corrin's sake. Instead, we can focus on the other main function of Corrin's talent, which is to grant his wife and his daughter a powerful class that they couldn't get otherwise. And for that reason, we're picking Dark Mage. This choice will pay off much later on. I'm sure some of you can guess my intentions. That wraps up our business with the Branch of Fate. We now return to our story in progress.
You're not hurt, are you? Big brother! Let us begin. Stay alert. Big brother.
Oh.
You have the devil's own luck.
Yay! Nohrian scum! No.
Don't be fooled. Come back. This way.
Big brother! He's my brother!
We're your family.
We are, of course, playing Conquest, and that means siding with Nohr. The game warns us that we'll have limited access to gold, but that's not as true as you might think. Sure, we can't grind, but Conquest hands out way more money than the other routes. I know what I must do. Ryoma, withdraw your troops.
It can't be.
I'm sorry, Ryoma, but I will not betray Nohr.
What?
It's not that simple. I know what the Nohrian kingdom has done to Hoshido is unforgivable. And I know now that these are not my brothers and sisters by birth. Yet, even still, I must side with them. My heart won't allow me to do otherwise.
Gods, no!
Ryoma, my sorrow is beyond words. Still, I simply will not abandon the only family I have ever known.
Everything's okay. What? Listen. Well... Not on my watch! Huh? Show no mercy. Stand down! I've been waiting for this. Ugh. Oh! Let us begin. No. No. Huh? Know this.
True. It'll work out.
I see. Come on.
Uh-huh.
No mercy.
I'll help too.
You have my pity.
Yes.
Failure is no option.
Aw, yeah!
You have breathed your last. Prepare yourself.
Just in time!
Huh?
What?
Already we have Felicia. Compared to Jakob, she has less HP, strength, skill, and defense, but more magic, speed, luck, and resistance. Overall, that makes her worse at combat, at least until we get our hands on a shuriken that uses magic rather than strength. But her support abilities are a little bit better. Devoted partners like a hybrid of Gunter's and Jakob's personal skills, increasing Corrin's damage by 2 and decreasing the damage he takes by 2. Overall, the additional attack power tends to be more useful than Jakob's evasion bonus and his single extra point of damage reduction. And as I said before, although Demoiselle and Gentium are superficially equivalent, Demoiselle is more impactful in the early game. Aside from Corrin, our single best combat unit for the next few chapters will be a man, and the other 3 male characters who will join us soon have better prospects for fighting on enemy phases than the women do, if for no other reason than that they all come with ranged weapons that allow them to counter mages and archers. Aside from Felicia, we also get to control each of the 4 Nohrian royal siblings, but they're only joining us temporarily. None of them get any experience here, their inventories will all get reset after this chapter, and if they fall in battle, they won't actually die. Even though they can't level up, we'll want to take advantage of their presence. Xander, Camilla, Leo, and Elise all have useful abilities that can make life a lot easier for Corrin and Felicia. We'll just want to make sure that they don't take any kills. It's worth emphasizing that because her inventory will get reset before she joins us for real, we can use both of Elise's staves freely. We have to defeat 4 out of 5 enemies to win this battle. The easiest way to accomplish that is to defeat everyone besides Ryoma, but he's worth a lot of experience. Therefore, we're going to leave Sakura for last. She's the lowest leveled opponent, and that makes her the least valuable. Also, if we don't try to kill Sakura, we don't have to worry about Miracle. It's possible to use the Dragon Vein near Camilla to dry up the river, just like in the prologue, and that would allow us to unite Xander with the rest of the team. However, we're going to take a more methodical approach because we're trying to feed experience exclusively to Corrin and Felicia. That said, neither Corrin nor Felicia is well equipped to engage the Takumi-Hinoka pair, so we're putting Leo at the edge of their range to soften up Takumi first. For now, Xander can just run away. We don't actually want him to fight Ryoma until we have Corrin ready to swoop in and take the kill.
I'm here to help. My chance!
Are you alright?
To guarantee victory against Takumi, Elise freezes him. Hinoka will survive for another turn, so we have to make sure Hinoka can't reach Elise.
Here I am. No mercy. Defeated by you? Ugh. You'll be all right.
Felicia's going to soften up Hinoka with Corrin's help. However, Corrin is at weapon triangle disadvantage here. His Yato is a katana, and he's going up against a Naginata. Felicia can trade with him to move the Dragonstone to the top of his inventory, and then Corrin will automatically equip it. Since stones are not involved in the weapon triangle, this improves Corrin's accuracy slightly, despite the fact that the Dragonstone applies a penalty to skill.
Let me try!
By using fire against Hinoka, Camilla allows Felicia to earn some extra experience with a dual strike. By rights, Felicia should get 1 point of weapon experience from this too. But rather bizarrely, the flag that prevents the royals from gaining any regular experience on this map also nullifies weapon experience for anyone supporting them, even if the supporting unit doesn't have that flag. Camilla's personal skill reduces damage taken by adjacent units by 1 point, so it effectively increases Felicia's defense stat to 6. That's not enough to survive Hinoka, who doubles Felicia thanks to Darting Blow, and can still hit her for 12 times 2. But as a Dark Knight, Leo grants 3 defense by pairing up, and that will allow Felicia to just barely survive. Felicia and Leo battle together for the first time. It won't be the last. Camilla takes Leo, then drops him next to Hinoka. The purpose of this is to guarantee Felicia's kill. Leo's Heartseeker skill cuts Hinoka's avoid, ensuring that Felicia and Corrin will always hit.
Okay, let's go.
Since the lead unit, Felicia, doesn't have the no experience flag, Corrin will get weapon experience from this dual strike.
I'll protect you. This is my chance.
I refuse to accept this.
Ready for this?
Next up is Yukimura. Corrin cannot counter Yukimura's ranged weaponry, but Felicia can, and Yato will be Corrin's most accurate weapon with which to dual strike. Yukimura carries both a Yumi, which is a Hoshiden bow, and a Shuriken. The Yumi has greater might and also has weapon triangle advantage over Felicia's dagger, so that's what Yukimura will use. Normally, the weapon triangle effects would make Felicia's counterattacks somewhat unreliable. However, there are only 2 tiles from which Yukimura can attack Felicia, and we've just put Leo in a position adjacent to both of those, forcing Yukimura to apply Heartseeker to himself. Elise heals Felicia. She also boosts Felicia's defenses by being adjacent thanks to her personal skill, Lily's Poise.
I'll protect you.
Xander is slowly luring Ryoma toward the rest of the team. We want everyone to reunite at the right time and place. Xander's positioning is designed to make that happen.
I'm here to help. Let me try.
Xander used his elixir to ensure Ryoma couldn't kill him with a crit. Elise restores enough HP for Felicia to be able to attack Yukimura again.
I'll help you.
Weapon experience is particularly important for Corrin right now because he has very nearly unlocked C rank in swords. For most weapon types, a weapon level of C grants a 1-point damage bonus as long as you're not on the wrong end of the weapon triangle. It doesn't sound like a lot, but a single point of attack can be a big deal early on, particularly for our Corrin, who is very fast and will be able to double a lot of enemies. Case in point, it's pretty unusual for a magic boon Corrin to have the 14 speed needed to double Yukimura. Corrin himself actually has just 13 speed, but the Yato counts as a katana. Katanas grant 1 point of speed when equipped, but they reduce defense and resistance by 1.
Such talk is pointless.
I'm here for you.
Lady Mikoto.
We don't want to kill Sakura because that would end the map prematurely, but there's no reason why we can't attack her.
We've got trouble.
I'm with you. This is my chance.
There are a couple of different ways to handle Ryoma. We're going to use the unsafe setup, which is meant to help Felicia earn a tiny bit more XP. As part of that, we need Camilla to be adjacent to her. Both Elise and Felicia are within Ryoma's reach, but he's scripted to always attack Xander when able, so they're safe. I guess that means Ryoma doesn't really want to kill Corrin after all.
All right!
Elise hits Ryoma with freeze. Or at least, she tries. What's unsafe about this setup is that Ryoma has a lot of avoid. You normally want to park Leo next to him to apply Heartseeker. Together with freeze, that should dramatically improve your accuracy. But instead, we're going to make Leo attack, just to give Felicia a chance to hit with her dagger.
What should we do? Paying attention?
Defeated.
Leo is defeated, but he'll be back. For her part, since Felicia's dual strike dealt 0 damage, she gets no experience from it. Although she wouldn't get experience anyway because the unit she was supporting died. But now when Xander attacks, Felicia's dual strike does deal damage. Her iron dagger dropped his defense by 3 points, now it's at 10. That should still completely nullify Felicia's 9 attack power, but Rose's Thorns increases Felicia's attack to 12, and against 10 defense, that's enough to deal 2 damage, or half that on a dual strike. We're doing all of this for a measly 5 experience points. If we had just taken advantage of Heartseeker and we had gotten Freeze to hit, we'd be seeing 100% accuracy here. Overall, these aren't very good tactics, but because Ryoma was programmed to attack Xander, we're not actually risking death. Yet. Felicia has very little hope of surviving Ryoma, but she can still hit Sakura one more time.
I'll do my best.
Let's go.
As it happens, Corrin can survive 2 non-critical hits from Ryoma with Felicia's support, so we're still not facing a significant chance of death if Corrin tries this. If he fails, Ryoma will attack Xander again, but we're just going to risk it. Usually Ryoma has little enough HP now that Xander's support is best. He can pick up the kill if Corrin misses.
Don't be fooled. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
Everything worked out. Corrin is now pretty much bang on his averages, except for the part where he's 3 points ahead on speed. Level 10 also unlocks a skill, Dragon Fang. This skill has a small chance to activate in battle to deal a lot of extra damage. In a run where we're trying to carefully control experience and support points, it's very, very bad. Luckily, we can remove it before our next battle, so it'll never matter. Stick around after the cutscenes. We're going to explore my castle for the first and probably only time.
I'm so sorry.
Wait.
Azura?
Hey,
Huh?
you.
Yeah.
I see.
Azura. Oh! Yes.
What?
Well...
You see?
Thank you.
We can build the armory or the staff store, but we only get one Dragonbane point right now, so we have to choose which to build first. The staff store is the more flexible choice, since it gives you access to class-changing items and tonics, which can help you hit important stat thresholds in Chapter 7. But we're not worried about any of that, so we're going to build the armory instead.
Well then.
We can now explore the facilities, but before we do that, we'll change some of the castle's settings. Most importantly, we're converting it to the Nestrian style. This fills our castle with a big moat, which will be very useful for the 3 invasion battles in this campaign. We can also change the ambient music if we wish, and we can replace Felicia with another generic attendant. However, it's best to keep Felicia here. She's a terrible cook, and as long as she has the assistant role, she can never be assigned to the mess hall. We're going to rearrange the pre-existing structures. This isn't just for organizational purposes. In the invasion battles, the locations of your facilities determine where you can deploy your units, and some of the buildings double as obstacles that can limit enemy mobility. The Travelers Plaza is where you interact with other players using Street Pass. We won't be able to use it, but it still works as a spawn point. Once a character has earned 20 kills, you can build a statue of them for free. Each character statue raises their cap for a particular stat. At 50 kills and 100 kills, you can upgrade these by spending a few more DVP. The level 2 silver statue raises the cap for everyone who has a C support with the character. The level 3 gold statue raises it for the entire army. We're finally selling that goddess icon from Chapter 4, and we're going to buy a bronze axe. That will make one of our upcoming recruits a little bit more accurate, and that's all we really want for Chapter 7. When you finish Chapter 5, your save file is randomly assigned a single Nohrian food source and mine that will appear in your castle. The food can grant temporary stat boost to your army, while the mine provides gems that are required for forging. We got the dairy, which is supposed to give us milk. However, I've installed a mod courtesy of Mama 10 that makes this generate one of every other kind of food too. The mod applies to the mine as well. There are ways to get different gems consistently, but if you want other kinds of food, you normally have to wait for random drops in the castle, or else visit the castles of other players. Now, if we had to make do with only the resources we were assigned, the dairy and the sapphire mine would be pretty good. Milk increases speed, and that makes it one of the best foods, after meat, which grants strength. And sapphires are used to forge axes. A forged bronze axe can be a great tool early on, although I'd usually prefer rubies to forge lances, or emeralds to forge bows. The Hoshiden gems in the right-hand column are useless to us because in Conquest, the smithy can only be used to forge Nohrian weaponry. But we are allowed to use Hoshiden foodstuffs in the mess hall, if we had one. For now, the only place we can use food is Lilith's temple. Here, by feeding Lilith, we can level her up and increase her stats. Lilith can fight alongside us during castle invasions, but her other function is that she gives us 300 gold every 3 levels. It's a small source of income, but it adds up. Also, she's very cute. Our next destination is the private quarters. But before we go there, we should take care of some roster management functions. First, we'll remove Dragonfang from Corrin's skill set. Dragonfang isn't exactly horrible, but it introduces a lot of variance in battle outcomes. Faith is a game where you can usually engineer kills on demand just by using concrete stats, so surprise bursts of damage often just work against you. Second, we should activate the C support between Corrin and Felicia. This is the only support conversation I plan to show on screen. I'll document the rest in the thread linked in the description. Now that we've unlocked that C support rank, Felicia will be able to benefit from Corrin's supportive skill. Supportive's effect is very powerful, and it makes Corrin even better at dual striking. We will want Corrin to achieve C support with several other characters as quickly as possible. Also, Corrin and Felicia can start progressing toward a B support. That's the function of the private quarters. It gives you a random selection of allies whom you can interact with to gain 1 support point. Since Felicia's the only other unit in the army, she's guaranteed to be in the list right now. I'm banning random events in the castle as part of the challenge, but this event isn't random, so it's legal.
Thanks for always being so nice to me. You've never made me feel like a servant.
You can't gain any support points if you have a conversation unlocked and waiting. That's why we needed to view this e-support with Felicia before we came here. I have forgotten to do that many times. The exclamation point over Felicia's head indicates that we can talk to her. Lots of things can come from these conversations. For example, Felicia might find an item, or she might get a temporary stat bonus. But we'll never do these because the outcomes are entirely random. The Records Hall lets us view past cutscenes. It also has a compatibility checker, which is just a bit of meaningless nonsense. But interestingly, there's a bit of lore tucked in here. The unit roster gives us some additional descriptions of the units who've been in our team so far. I suppose this means Rinka and Sakura are officially part of the Conquest roster. The library also hosts some ancient texts. There are 9 of them. They're written in an alien script, but the 9th text shows us that these characters are just a simple substitution cipher for the English alphabet. The texts read as follows. A dragon, neither white nor black, saw his future self as no more than a caged beast. A dragon, neither white nor black, sang 3 songs of prophecy so someday his soul might be released. In the white light, a hand reaches through. A double-edged blade cuts your heart in two. Waking dreams fade away. Embrace the brand new day. Embrace the dark you call a home. Gaze upon an empty white throne. A legacy of lies, a familiar disguise. A burdened heart sinks into the ground. A veil falls away without a sound. Not day nor night, wrong nor right, for truth and peace we fight. Once dragons fought against each other using humans as pawns. They empowered their pawns with drops of their own blood. In time, the dragon-blooded humans became royalty, even as the dragons descended into beasthood. To escape madness, the dragons threw off their mortal flesh and became ascended spirits. They left the world of humanity, except for the few dragons who chose to remain. The white princes and princesses are born of Sumeragi and Icona. The black princes and princesses are born of Garen, the first prince with Katarina, the first princess with a concubine, the second prince with yet another, the second princess with another still. The child of light kidnapped in the dark is not of Nohr blood, nor a child of the Hoshidan king. The child was born of the White Queen and Silent Dragon. Anankos is the true father. So, remember how Ryoma said he and his siblings were our real family? It wasn't actually true. This is the only place in Conquest where you can find out. Next time, we accompany our Nohrian siblings to Windmire, and we confront Garen about his exploding sword. Let's see if we can get some answers.